Right, so on problem number 1, it tells me that VW is the same size as WY. So this distance right here is the same as this distance right here. If that's true, what would we call point W? The midpoint. It also says that XZ, and then it has this weird symbol. What's that weird symbol mean? Perpendicular. And what does perpendicular mean? Okay. Means that it makes a right angle. And where's the right angle happening? At Z? At X. This is where XZ intersects VY. So that is forming a right angle right there. Which one of these would be the altitude? Which one of the line segments would be the altitude? XZ. Because it's forming a right angle. And altitude goes from a vertex to the opposite side and it makes a right angle. That is the definition of an altitude. Which one is a median? WZ. Without using process of elimination, how would you know that WZ was the median? Midpoint. This goes from a vertex to a midpoint. Y is XZ, this one right here. Why is that not a perpendicular bisector? It doesn't cut anything in half. And how would we know if it was cutting it in half? What point would it have to hit to cut it in half? Would have to hit W, would have to hit midpoint. So I'm going to say because X is not the midpoint, of VY. You could say because XZ does not bisect WY, it can't be a bisector if it's not bisecting. One of the things I'm really looking for on this, though, is that you're identifying where it hits VY is not the midpoint. The perpendicular bisector has to hit the midpoint, and if it's not hitting the midpoint, it's not a perpendicular bisector. All right, last question. Given that angle YXZ is equal to 6R plus 12, find the value of R. Where is angle YXZ? Yep. YXZ would be this angle right here. How big is that angle? 90. We were told that XZ was perpendicular to VY. I know that on the left and on the right side of X, that forms a linear pair, has to add up to 180 because it makes a straight line. So if one side of it is 90, the other side would also have to be 90. So what could I replace this with? 90. We know it's 90 degrees, so I can replace the measurement of angle YXZ with 90. And then I'm going to bring down not 6x, but 6r plus 12. And now we're going to solve this for r. So I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. Does anybody know what 90 minus 12 is? 78. So 78 equals 6r. Divide both sides by 6. And that means r is how big? 13. What else would you guys like to see off the review? Yes. Number 2? Absolutely. On number 2, it tells me that segments CF, BD, and AG are all medians. And what did we say a median does? Goes from vertex to the midpoint. So all of these segments here, AG, CF, and BD, those are all medians. So what would I call points D, F, and G? Midpoints. What do we call the place where the 3 medians intersect each other? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. It's the centroid. That would be my answer to part A. That is the centroid. Something I forgot to mark on my picture. If B, D, and G are all midpoints, what does that mean about AF and BF? They're congruent. What about BG and CG? They're congruent. AD and CD? They're congruent. Thank you. When I have the 3 medians, when I have the centroid, this is where we had those special relationships between the distance of the centroid to the midpoint and the distance of the centroid to the vertex. Which one's bigger? Centroid to midpoint or centroid to vertex? Centroid to vertex is the bigger one, right? Specifically, it is twice as big as the distance from the centroid to the midpoint. So from the centroid to the midpoint, I'm going to call X. The other side of it, from the centroid to the vertex, is twice as big, so I'm going to call it 2X. I'm going to do that for every single one of these medians. I have an X and I have a 2X. The X is the part that goes down to the midpoint. The 2X part is the one that goes up to the corner of the triangle, the vertex of the triangle. All right. Part B, they tell me that EC is 20. I'm going to go look at my picture. Here's EC on my picture. What did we label that as? 2X. So instead of saying EC is 20, I'm going to say that 2X is 20. If 2X is 20, how big is X? X is 10. So what's the length from E to F? 10. What about that whole big the whole median there? I have x and I have a 2x, and I'm putting them together to get that whole median. So what would that be then? 3x. And we said that x is how big on this one? X is 10. So 3 times 10 would give me what? 30. Beautiful. Let's look at part C, and then we'll get to part D, I promise. Part C says AG is 21. Well, here's AG. I've got to turn that off and put it away. AG is that entire median, which we said is what when I have the whole median? 3x. So instead of saying AG, I'm going to say 3x equals 21. Well, if 3x is 21, how big is just x? 7. So how big is AE? 14, because that is marked as a 2x relationship. So 2 times 7 to get 14. What about EG? 7. That one is just x. All right, now the part that I was asked for, part D. It says that AF is 3x plus 7. I'm going to go over and look at my picture. From A to F, this distance right here is 3x plus 7. And then it says that from A to B is 19. Well, that's this whole side of the triangle. What's the relationship between AF and AB? AF is half of AB. What would I need to do to AF if I wanted to get something that was exactly the same size as AB? Multiply it by 2. So 2 times AF would give me the size of segment AB. How big did we say AF was again? 3x plus 7. How big is AB? 19. So I'm going to take that 2 on the outside of the parentheses and I'm going to distribute it. Then I'm going to bring my work a little bit higher on the screen. 2 times 3x, 6x. We have to distribute it to the 7 also. What's 2 times 7? 14. It's equal to 19. To solve this for x, I need to subtract 14 from both sides. What is 19 minus 14? 5. What do I need to do now to get x all by itself? Divide by 6, so that I can make the 6 next to the x cancel out. When I do 5 divided by 6 on my calculator, does it come out as a whole number? No. So I'm either going to leave it as a fraction, 5/6, which, by the way, is my preference. This is the way I would prefer you write it on the test. If it doesn't come out to be a whole number, leave it as a fraction. If you forget that and you pop it into your calculator, what does the calculator say when you do 5 divided by 6? 0.83 and then 3. So we put a bar over the 3. Whatever part is repeating, we put a bar over that to show that it's a repeating session, a repeating value. So x is 5/6 or 0.83 with the 3 repeating. What else would you guys like to see? Yes. Number 4, absolutely. Number 4 says that AG is 6x minus 4. That's this segment right here. And it says that AD is 4x plus 12. Right here. It also says that angle DOA is 28 degrees. So start at D, go to O, and then to A. So here's angle DOA, 28 degrees. So as I was marking the picture up, I was noticing something kind of interesting here. It's hard to see on the picture, but it's super important because it's how you know what to do next. Those 2 little markings right there. What do those little markings mean? Congruent. So this little tiny angle is the same size as this little tiny angle. Which means that we would call AO a what? A bisector, an angle bisector. It's cutting an angle in half, so it is an angle bisector. Angle bisectors cut angles in half. But the other thing about an angle bisector is that points on the angle bisector are equidistant from the sides of the angle. O is on my angle bisector. What other point is on the angle bisector? A. A is going to be equidistant from the sides of my angle. So it's equidistant from D and G. So AD is congruent to GB. Or sorry, AG, my bad, AG. If those segments are congruent, what does it mean about their measurements? They're the same, they're equal. So the length of AD is equal to the length of AG. How big did we say AD was? 4x plus 12. How big is AG? 6x. You said plus 4? Okay, I'm not looking at it right now. We're going to solve this for x. Are my x's on the same side? Got to get them there then. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. So I have 12 is equal to 2x plus 4. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. What's 12 minus 4? So I have 8 is equal to 2x. If 8 is equal to 2x, then how big is x? X is 4. That's the first thing they asked me for. How do I find the length of AD now? Plug it in. AD is 4x plus 12. We just found out that x was 4. So I have 4 times 4 plus 12. What is 4 times 4? 16. So I have 16 plus 12, and that would give me 28. AD is 28. Last thing they want me to find is the measurement of angle DOG. Angle DOG. Angle DOG is the big angle that's being bisected. And they told me at the beginning that the top part was 28 degrees. So how big is this part? 28 degrees. So how would I find the size of the entire angle? Add the two angles together, or that would be the same as multiplying by 2. So I can do 2 times 28 degrees, or 28 plus 28, same thing. And we get what? 56. What else would you guys like to see me work through? Number 5? Absolutely. Find AD if F is the circumcenter. All right, I'm going to stop right there before I read any more. It says find AD. Here it is. We want to know what this size is. We want to know what this length is. They tell me that F is the circumcenter. So this point right here is the circumcenter. The circumcenter is where the 3 whats intersect. Perpendicular bisectors, yes. It is also equidistant from the 3 vertices of the triangle. So which segments are going to be the same size? It's equidistant from the 3 vertices. So which segments are going to be the same size? AF, EF, and CF. From the corners, from the vertices to that point F. Because these are perpendicular bisectors, what does that mean about points D, B, and G? What would we call those? Midpoints. If B is the midpoint of this side, what does that mean about AB and CB? They are congruent. What about CG and EG? They're congruent. What about AD and ED? They're congruent. All right. I think I've done all the marking up I can using that word circumcenter. That's a whole lot going on in my triangle. We'll see which pieces we need to actually answer this question. It says DF is 5.4. Well, here's DF, 5.4. And it says that EF is 9.1. So there's EF, 9.1. I want you guys to look carefully this little triangle inside the big triangle. What kind of triangle is that little guy? It's a right triangle. What is it that we're allowed to use to find missing sides of right triangles that we can't use with any other type of triangle? Pythagorean theorem. We are going to use the Pythagorean theorem to find missing sides of right triangles. What is the Pythagorean theorem? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And what's the only part of this formula that's fussy? Has to have a specific piece put in it. The other parts don't matter. Don't get picky about it. C. And what do I have to make sure to put in the place of C? The hypotenuse. Which part of that little green triangle is the hypotenuse? (9.1). Remember, it's across from that right angle. So 9.1 would be my hypotenuse. So I have to put that in the place of C. So I have 9.1 squared. On the other side, I put my other two sides. And the order on those doesn't matter at all. The only one that's fussy is the hypotenuse. How big is one of the other sides? (5.4). I can put it in for either A or B. It does not matter. I'm going to pop it in the place of B. What's the other side? Do we know how big the other side is? What's the name of the side that we don't know? On that green triangle. See, DF would be this. That's the one that's 5.4. What'd you say? I thought I heard somebody say it. DE. This side right here is the other side of that green triangle. So DE. Close my parentheses and square it. Now I need some help with calculators, guys. We have to take 5.4 and square it. What is 5.4 squared? 29.16. What about 9.1 squared? 82.81. We're going to subtract 29.16 from both sides. What is 82.81 minus 29.16? 53.65. Is that my answer? No. What do I have to do to it? Square root it. And when we square root things, we get how many answers? 2. We get one that's positive and one that's negative. So plus or minus the square root of 53.65. What do you get when you take the square root of 53.65? (7.3). Can DE be both the positive 7.3 and the negative 7.3? No, it can only be which one? Positive. I'm going to go add that to my picture. 7.3. They didn't ask me to find DE, though. They asked me to find AD. It's congruent. AD is the same size as DE. So that means AD is how big? AD is 7.3. What else would you guys like to see? Number 10, absolutely. Number 10, we got to reach way back in our memories to the first day back after Thanksgiving break. This was the day that I was out and I left a video for you guys. That's where this material is. So if you want to refresh on how to do this, you need to go back and watch that short video from the day after fall break, or the day after Thanksgiving break. It says Hannah, Priya, and Kenny sit next to each other at school, forming a triangular work area. And I can see that the distance from Kenny to Priya is 30 inches. And the distance from Kenny to Hannah is 18 inches. So what we have happening here is we've got 3 different line segments, kind of like this. I've got a pencil, a marker, and a paper clip. And I want to try to arrange those into a triangle. So I need to put their ends together to make a triangle, right? So I can put the marker and the pencil together like this. I've got my little paper clip here. What's my problem? The end of the pencil's too far. If I put it on the end of the pencil, I can't reach the end of the marker. If I put it on the end of the marker, I can't reach it's too short. My paper clip is too short. In order to actually make a triangle, I would need some side that's slightly longer, like my bigger paper clip. Now I can make a triangle out of it. So this is what we're checking for on this. I want to make sure that these distances, these line segments, could actually form a triangle. So we have an upper bound and a lower bound. It can't get too big, or else those 2 sides that I have would just lay flat with the other one right on top of them. It can't be too short, or I'd have the opposite problem. The little piece and one of my other pieces would be end to end, and it wouldn't make a triangle with that third piece. So to find my upper boundary, we add the 2 sides that we know together. And what are the 2 sides that we know? Yep, 30 and 18. So I do 30 plus 18. And I would get what as my upper boundary? 48. In this case, it'd be 48 inches, right? So X can't be any bigger than 48 inches. To find the smallest it can be, to find my lower boundary, I'm not going to add. So what could I do? Subtract. Does it matter what order I do the subtraction in? Yes. It's got to come out to be a positive number, so I have to do the big one minus the smaller one. So 30 minus 18, which would give me what? 12. As long as the distance between Hannah and Priya is bigger than 12 inches, so bigger than a foot, but smaller than 4 feet, smaller than 48 inches, then these girls can sit in a triangle together. If it's more than 48 inches, it's not going to be a triangle. If it's less than 12 inches, it's not going to make a triangle. We've got about 9 minutes left. What else would you guys like to see? Yes. Number 11, absolutely. Given the triangle below, list the sides from shortest to longest. Well, this would be a piece of cake if I knew how big those angles were, because we know that the biggest side is across from the biggest angle, and the shortest side is across from shortest angle or smallest angle. Do I have a way of figuring out how big these angles are? Triangle sum theorem. And the triangle sum theorem tells me that when I add all three angles of a triangle, it's going to add up to how much? 180. How big is angle A? 4x minus 38 plus, how big is angle B? 2x minus 1. And angle C? 3x plus 12. All of that added together adds up to 180. Let's combine our like terms together. I have 4x, 2x, and 3x. How many x's do I have when I collect them all? 9x. And then I have to combine my constants together. So I have minus 38, I have minus 1, and I have plus 12. What would that combine to give me? Minus 38, minus 1, and plus 12. Close. Negative 27 is equal to 180. We're going to solve this for x, so I'm going to add 27 to both sides. So I get 9x is equal to 207. What is 207 divided by 9? 23. So x is 23. So now what do? Plug it in for all the x's so that I can figure out how big all the angles are. So up here for angle A, I have 4 times 23 minus 38. What is 4 times 23? 92 minus 38 is how much? 54. So this angle up here is 54 degrees. Angle B, 2 times 23 minus 1. What is 2 times 23? 46 minus 1. So this is a 45-degree angle. And then we come down to the bottom one. 3 times 23 plus 12. What's 3 times 23? 69 plus 12? 81. So angle C is 81 degrees. Are we supposed to list these biggest to smallest or smallest to biggest? Smallest to biggest, shortest to longest. Which side would be my shortest side? AC. Why? It's across from the shortest or smallest angle. So here's my smallest side. Because this up here is my smallest angle. So AC goes first in my list. I always skip the middle. We'll catch it at the end. Do the biggest next. Which side would be the biggest side? AB. Because it's across from the biggest angle. Angle B is my biggest angle at 81. So AB is the biggest side. Well, if AC is the shortest side and AB is the biggest side, which one goes in the middle? BC. There's my sides in order from smallest to biggest. We had to find x first, so we had to use our triangle sum theorem. Then we had to plug it in. We had to substitute to figure out how big those angles were. Once I knew how big the angles were, we had to use what we knew about triangle inequalities. Biggest side across from the biggest angle, smallest side across from the smallest angle. We have less than 3 minutes until the bell rings. Answer key for this is posted in Canvas. Where will you find that at? Go to modules. Once you've found today's module, will it be right there? No, you have to click on the page that says Review Day 2. When you click on the page that says Review Day 2, you're going to scroll all the way to the very last bottom, and it's going to be down there. I've done videos of all 5 of my geometry classes today, and I'm posting all of those, so if you had a question about one that we did not go over in here today, check out those videos. First period and second period are already posted. I will get the other 3 up just as quickly as I can after school today. But there's already 2 videos loaded and the answer key.